I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 4 English lesson on we'll be doing our grade 4 English lesson on commas. And before we start with our lesson on commas, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. We're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 4, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of commas. And it's going to be a few lessons that we're going to be doing under the chapter of commas. So our chapter is commas. The subject is English, which is language arts. Grade 4. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing under the chapter of commas is commas with a series, commas with date, and commas with the names of places. All right, so we're going to start with commas, firstly with series, right? And before we start, we said commas, that's the name of our chapter. And we use commas to separate 3 or more items within a series. Or firstly, before we even start, there's many uses of commas. And one of the uses is to use commas to separate 3 or more items within a series. So we put a comma after each item in the list except for the last one. So once again, we use commas to separate 3 or more items within a series. And we put a comma after each item in the list, except for the last one. For example, the American flag is red, white, and blue, right? So here we have 3 colors, right? Which is red, white, and blue, which means that if you want to try and separate those 3, let's say, items within a series, and then it's like we're saying it's red, comma, white, comma, and blue. So now we don't say comma after blue, we just put our end point. Another example could be where you say, like, mom sent me to the shop to buy apples, comma, pear, comma, oranges, comma, and grapes. And then we have our endpoint. Because now we're saying we use a comma to separate three or more items within a series. And there we already have two examples of different series. So that is, for example, red, white, and blue, or apples, pears, oranges, and grapes. Those are, we call that series, right? And we use the commas to separate the three or more items within that series. Then also we can use commas in dates, right? So in dates, we use a comma between the day as well as the year. So if we write the dates, right? And then before we add the comma, to write the date, you always put the month first. So we put the month first. Then we write the date. This is after the month, comma, and the year. So in dates, we use a comma between the day and the year. So even if we were today's date, right? So today being December. So today is December. It is the 22nd today, comma, 2023. So that is today's date, right? So we see that in dates, we use a comma between the day and the year. So we see that in dates, we use a comma between the day and the year. And we even made an example of today's date. Or you can basically make an example of your birthday, right? So we will then first write the year, the the month, and then we put the day, comma, and then we put the year. And that is basically just how we write in dates to use a comma between the day and the year. And we said also that we use commas to separate three or more items in a series. And then we also put the comma after each item in the list except for the last one. All right. Like I say, you can even choose your birthday, right? And then you first write the year, the month, sorry, and the day, as well as today's date, for example, or the date that you were on your birth certificate. So we also use a comma between a city and a state or between a city and a country. So if you, for example, write down where you're from, then you need to add a comma between the city and the state or between a city and a country. And if we look at an example of how to use a comma between a city and a state or between a city and a country, right? So here it says we use a comma between city and state or between city and country. And there we have it, Miami, Florida. There we have Paris, France, right? And then we, for example, let's say my own city and country is, our city is Cape Town and the country is, so the city that I live in is Cape, and the country is South Africa. So you can basically either write down first your city and then the country, or your city and your state. All right. So there I made an example of Cape Town, which is my city, or the city that I live in, and then I put the name of our country, which is South Africa. All right. So we see that we use commas to separate three or more items, is right? And we put a comma after each item in the list, except for the last one. And I even made an example of fruit, right? So we said we use a comma to separate or more items within a series, and we put a comma after each item in the list, except for the last one. If we are going to add commas to separate, for example, three or more items or series, right? Series, then we can put a comma after each item in the list. All right. There we have an example. The American flag is red, white, and blue. Please see where the commas basically were put. Or let's say the items was put within a series. All right, so we need to correct the bold part of the sentence by adding any missing commas. So we need to correct the word in bold. Also correct the bold part of the sentence by adding any missing commas. So yeah, right at the bottom it says, these sentences list items in a series. Use commas after the first two. Okay. So the leaves, branches, and trunks of this tree are covered with ants. So is it leaves, branches, and a trunk of trees are covered with ants, or the leaves, branches, and trunk? So basically the leaves, branches, and tree trunks of this tree, it's covered with ants. So if we look at the word in bold, right, which is leaves, branches, and trunk. So if we look at this word that is in bold, right, the leaves, branches, and trunk, it's covered with. So the leaves, branches, and trunk of this tree are covered with ants. So the sentence list 3 items in a series, you need to use the comma after the to series. So we are going to use a comma to separate 3 or more items in a series, and we're going to put a comma after each item in the list except for one. And we say that the American flag is red, comma, white, comma, blue, comma. And remember, we add the commas after each one of the items except for the last one. Last one, we then say comma and in the name of the last one. And remember, 3 or more items can literally be any items depending, right? All right. At least we know that you are here even though you are silent. Okay. We did the one where we said that the leaves, branches, and the trunk, right? Do you want sausage, eggs, and toast for breakfast? If we look at, for example, the list of those words, then that is also a list of series, right? Is do you want sausage, eggs, and toast for breakfast? And that is basically an item within series. And the same with this one, where we're going to, for example, list the item series, right? Where we're using a comma after the first 2 items. For example, there were acrobats, there were clowns, comma, and animals. So that is now basically our 3 items, right, within a series that we had to separate with a comma. All right, so now we're going to our test on commas with a series. So correct the bold part of the sentence by adding any missing commas. If the sentence is correct, then don't add any commas. So these are the first option, which is the leaves, comma, branches, comma, and trunk of this tree are covered with ants, which is option 1. Or the second option, which is the leaves, comma, branches, and trunk of this tree are covered with ants. So which option is the correct option, which shows the series? All right, so if we're going to choose the correct one, then we will say it is the first option because we see that it is leaves, comma, branches, comma, and trunk, right? And there's a comma missing in the second option. So the first one is correct. So well done. We need to correct the bold part of the sentence by adding any missing commas. So if the sentence is already correct, then don't add any commas. I got a robot, a toy rocket, comma, and a telescope for my birthday. Or I got a robot, comma, a toy rocket, and a telescope for my birthday. So which one is the correct one? Where the commas are on its correct place. All right, so if we choose the correct one, we can say it is the first option because we said I got a robot, comma, a toy rocket, comma, and the first option is correct. So great job. So do you want sausage, comma, eggs, comma, and toast for breakfast, or do you want sausage, eggs, and toast breakfast? All right, so we can say sausage, eggs, and toast over here. So the committee includes several doctors, comma, nurses, comma, right? We need to choose the correct option. Or is it option two, which is it includes several doctors, comma, nurses, and patients? So which one is the correct one? All right, so if we are going to choose the correct one, then we will choose option one, right? Because it says the committee includes several doctors, comma, nurses, comma, and patients. And the first one is correct. All right, let's do the last one of commas with series. So will you manage in yards, comma, feet, comma, or inches? Or will you measure this in yards, comma, feet, and inches? Oh, sorry. So we can say it's the first option. And the first option is correct. You will need a harness, a saddle, and reins to ride this horse. So you need a harness, comma, saddle, comma, and reins. So we will go with the first option, right? Because remember, even the way they specifically put the commas, that is where they want to see it. So option one. So we will say we're choosing the first option, right? Is correct. The president, comma, the mayor, comma, and the colonel will meet in 1 hour. So if we are going to choose the correct one, right, we choose it based on where or how the commas were properly, let's say, placed in the series, right? So we will say it is the first option. Yes. Well done. All right. So now we're going to commas with dates, right? And we said with commas with dates, we first add the month, then the day, followed by a comma, and then the year. So in dates, we said we use a comma between the day and the year. So you first put the month, then you put the day, followed by a comma, and then the year. So we are now going to be adding the missing comma, or if not, then we are just going to choose the correct form of the sentence, right? This is now where we add the correct dates. And we first add the month, then the day, comma, and then the year. So astronaut Chris Hadfield returned to Earth on 18 on May, 13, 2013, or astronaut Chris Honeyhan and Hadfield returned to Earth on May 13, comma, 2013. And if we choose the correct one, we can say it's this first option. And the first one is correct. So well done, because we said it is first the month, then the day, followed by a comma, and then so if we choose the correct sentence, right? Then we can say it is option. So well done. Well done. Option one is correct because we said we first add the month, which is August 24, which is the day. So British soldiers set the White House on fire on August 24, 1814. So we're choosing the first option because it's the month and then the year. So the first option is correct. So we are here by May 15, 2014. So now we're going to use comma again to separate series, right? So we can say May 15, comma 2014. So we're sticking to the first option. Yes, so well done. We're sticking to the first option. And the first one is correct. All right, let's do the last one, which is the Boston Tea Party took place on December 16, 1973. This one is correct. So the first option is correct. And if we find the correct one, we can even say it is option two, because we have the month, we have the day, and if we choose the correct one, we can say it's option one. So which means that we are going to choose All right, so we're going back, all right, to our lessons. So we're going to go with commas with the names of places. Commas with the names of places. So we said in the first one that we use commas to separate our items, which will be in a form of a series. In the second one, we go on dates. So we also use commas between a city and a state, or between a city and a country. And I made an example earlier on where I said I am specifically from Cape Town, which is a city, and the town that I come from is maybe Mitchell's Plain. Right? So that is basically, I'm from the city Cape Town and the country, which is so we said Cape Town is a city. Gosh, did I say Mitchell's Plain? And our country is South Africa. That's a country. The other word that I said was also like a city or a little town, right? The other one that I also mentioned was a town. So we basically today mentioned commas with a series where we said that if there are 3 or more items, then we add a comma after each last one. And then we have commas with dates. And commas with dates, we write the month, we put the date, which is the day, comma, and then the year. And then we also have commas with names of places where we say that we either add a comma after the city and then the country. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on commas. Thank you for joining the class and for interacting, and I really hope you're going to have a good weekend further. Goodbye.